How is it, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Bangahz. With Jake and Bryson, like usual. Say hi to the people.
Hello, Friday.
How's it?
It is Aloha Friday for us as we were recording, but been a week of free agency, a lot of trades, a lot of cuts, a lot of moves, a lot of surprises, especially today. We'll talk more about that, but yeah, just a lot of news around the league. So I think we'll just jump straight in, just kind of talking about the different teams and their that had some big signings that made some moves. So we'll start with Miami Dolphins. A little bit of their key signings were edge Shaq Barrett was a 1 year, 9 mil. Jordan Poyer, safety from the Bills, signed a 1 year deal as well with them. I think that one was around 3 mil. And they also signed a few other players such as Kendall Fuller, Jordan Brooks, lineman Aaron Brewer, Jonas Smith. So pretty big free agency class. They've been active, not with the big names, but how do you guys feel so far about Miami's moves?
Yeah, pretty solid. I mean, it's nothing too groundbreaking like other teams. I think those two defensive additions were pretty good ones. And it's just one of the many traders moves. Teams just staying in the division. We'll cover. But yeah, I felt it was like a solid one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, seems makes sense that they're trying to kind of bolster up that defensive side. We know what their offense looks like: high powered, fast pace, and they just need to kind of have that defense kind of keep teams at bay because we know they can score. But we saw last year that teams either kept up with them or outscored them because their defense just couldn't hold their own. So yeah, makes sense. Kind of help out the defensive side. Not too many crazy big names. Obviously, we know that they lost Christian Wilkins, and that we'll probably mention that in the when we bring up the Raiders. But yeah, losing a big name like that, got to definitely kind of compensate. Not too many big moves on that defensive line. Not too many huge names. I mean, Barrett, he's decent on the edge, but Wilkins kind of being that interior DT, you know, maybe they're going to be looking a little different on that defensive line. But yeah, not surprised. Defensive side definitely needs help.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. I think we all know Dolphins definitely need more help on defense. I like this class. I mean, they don't have any of the bigger names that we'll talk about these other teams having, but I feel like they did get some steals. Like we said, Shaq Barrett, Jordan Poyer. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Poyer. Was a huge piece for the Bills defense, and they get him for a 1 year deal, 3 mil. I think he is a all pro, maybe a pro bowler. I know for sure. Definitely one of the better safeties in this league, and just to get him for so cheap and continue building that secondary because I know they, like we said, they lost a few pieces. I know Xavier Howard's still out there in free agency. That was their second corner. They still have Jalen, but yeah, I like their pieces. I mean, cheap, cheap signings.
Yeah.
Definitely some championship players that you got to get those lower contracts. But yeah, that'll wrap up the Miami's. Next, we'll switch over to the Ravens. A little bit of less names they've gone to, but a little bit more high key names or big market. They got Derrick Henry, 2 mil or 2 years, 16 mil, and Justin Mudabuke. They re-signed to a huge contract, 4 years, 98 mil, and that's pretty much their free agency class. A few re-signings besides that, and signing, I know Jake's favorite receiver, Nelson Aguilar. So
That's Super Bowl
yeah, what do you
champion Nelson Aguilar. Remember that. I just playing.
what, what do you guys think of the Baltimore Ravens so far?
Yeah, good pickups. Well, I mean, really good pickup with Derrick Henry. Um, I don't hate it. I mean, we kind of saw it all coming. We expected it. Um, are his legs what they were maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Definitely not. But he's a powerhouse running back, big name. Still not, out of like on that decline as fully, as we've seen running backs kind of get in their older age, but he's definitely out of his prime. But it's definitely an upgrade from where they were. That definitely was the biggest position they were hurting at, was running back. And it's going to be interesting to see that read option between him and Lamar. So expect a lot of that this year. But yeah, Matabuke, he was a big piece of that. Not the biggest name on that defensive side, but he was just a solid player. Did what he needed to do, make big plays, and was definitely a core piece of that defense. And they're definitely happy to have him back. And they should be interesting to see. I know last year looking like they might have gone all the way, but of course they ran into Mahomes. So we'll see how that looks with Henry back in that backfield now, because this will be the first time in a while of having a premier running back, at least name wise, along with Lamar. So we'll see what that running game looks like. If it's just going to be Lamar still doing his thing, or maybe Henry can have a resurgence there.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting. I think this was, like Bryson said, this was the move we were all expecting. Waiting, even at the midpoint of last season, thinking they were going to make the trade, but finally happened. So get to see both of them in the backfield, just like pretty much thunder and lightning at this point, right? So yeah, definitely can't wait to see that. And I would always bet on Derrick Henry, even if the wheels fall off very soon. I'm still taking my chances with him. This is just proven to do it year in and year out. So yeah, I definitely love the move, but same time they lost choke guys. So guys like Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, Morgan Moses, John Simpson, Gus Edwards. Obviously, we don't need to worry about that one. They got Derrick Henry, Ronald Darby, and Devin Duvernay. So they lost a lot of guys on the defense side of the ball. It's probably going to hurt them more, but overall, I mean, brought in Derrick Henry and Matabike, so it's a pretty solid one. I'd say it's evened out a little bit, or maybe not. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I don't know if it even out. I mean, there's a lot of names we've talked about. I mean, Patrick Queen was a rising star, had an amazing season last year. Ronald Darby's a great cornerback. I mean, kind of later in his career, but I like their signings. I mean, Mutabuke definitely was probably obviously their priority. I felt like this offseason he just seemed to be a big piece of their defense, just securing that inside. And just matching him with Roquan Smith has just been. I mean, we've seen what the Ravens defense does. They're just incredible in that front seven. So it makes sense. I also like the Derrick Henry one. I like it in kind of theory when we think about it. Just a little more Derrick Henry signing. My only question is, they've been struggling with the health of their running back. I feel like these last few years. I know with J.K. Dobbins, just some backups too. I mean, we've seen Le'Veon Bell run for them. We've seen some just pretty much running backs that come off the couch play for them toward the end of the season. And Derrick Henry is not. I mean, we've talked about he's a little bit up in age. He's been kind of dealing with injuries these last few years. So that's kind of my biggest question about that signing. But the idea, if them two can stay healthy, it's a scary backfield to deal with. But I think health is my biggest concern with that team.
That's valid.
Yeah, no, definitely understandable.
But yeah, I won't talk up the Ravens any more than I need to. So we'll move on to the Texans. Been really busy. I mean, we know what they have in C.J. Stroud. We saw what he did last year. It seems like this was going to be kind of an off season for them to kind of buy in, try and get their team as best as they can while they pay a cheap quarterback. So their first big move, or one of their biggest move, was trading for Joe Mixon. Gave up a 7th rounder, so pretty much nothing. Re-signed Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. Did sign the edge Danielle Hunter, big name, 2 year for $49 million, and then a few names, Jeff Okudah, Desmond King, Lonnie Johnson. Signed up 4 corners, so seems like that was the position they kind of wanted to bolster up. But yeah, that's pretty much their class. How do you guys feel about this one?
I really like this free agency class. This was one of the teams I think all of us were, I think, in agreement that they're right there for just having a great offseason. They'll definitely be in the contending for fighting for a top seed in the AFC. So this is definitely an encouraging sign. You know, replacing Devin Singletary. I'm the only fan of him here, but Joe Mixon is an upgrade. I will admit that, so don't worry about that. But and then bringing back their weapons, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, just bring back the same targets they had last year. Always good right there, and then just shoring up the defense, giving D'Amico Ryans more talent on the defensive line. You said Daniil Hunter, and then there's Danico Autry. They have brought in a bunch of guys, but probably one of my favorite ones is they brought in linebacker Aziz Al-Shair, which was one of the linebackers I really wanted the Eagles to bring in. Fortunately, he's going Texas, but it's a great talent for D'Amico Ryans right there.
Yeah, definitely a huge offseason for them. This is very forthcoming for the Texans. It's been a long time since we've kind of thought they were relevant in a while. I mean, it hasn't been that long. Obviously, Deshaun Watson kind of made them relevant for a little bit there, but it seemed like really bleak for a while. It didn't seem like it was going to be this quick of kind of a turnaround. Attribute it to Ryans, like you said, and just some good front office moves and some good draft moves. I think the only thing that's contingent is if CJ Stroud can just repeat what he did last year. I think the future's bright for them this season. Yeah, I think they're going to be fighting in the top of the AFC. A lot of young talent, a lot of young guys on the offensive side. I don't hate the Joe Mixon. He's still fairly young, 27. And, didn't really have a great year last year, kind of fell off, at least from the year he had before that. Maybe you can attribute that to the struggles of the Bengals without Burrow and, just kind of figuring out their identity with their receiver core. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good pick and definitely, like you said, a step up from Singletary. And, yeah, the defensive side is – I think that's what we were talking about most of the year was just that defense just needed a little bit more help. Hunter, I like Hunter. I think he's a very underrated guy. He's going to pair nicely with Anderson. And, yeah, that defense looking a little scary now. Some bigger names and definitely a lot more talent now on that side of the ball. So definitely one of the biggest teams to watch coming out of the AFC. I think they can definitely – make some noise right now.
Yeah, pretty much with both of you guys on this one. I mean, Daniil Hunter's huge addition, just giving D'Amico Ryans more pieces to play with on that defense. I mean, we saw last year they had their flashes of greatness, but I felt like they were very inconsistent at times. Oh, sorry. But yeah, they're inconsistent at times. I feel like getting these pieces, they're a lot of veterans, a lot of guys that know their role. I think it shores up a lot of their holes they have. Because we know they have the top end talent. They got the Will Anderson, they got Derrick Stingley, these early draft picks that they invested. But yeah, I think this is a great class. They just needed to kind of shore up the holes around with veterans and just players that know what they're doing and not having to take risk on rookies, putting them out there. But yeah, great class for the Texans. Staying in that division, we'll switch over to the Titans. They also had a big class, a little confused about where they are as a team. I know they got a new coach, new GM? No?
Yeah, new GM.
New GM as well. So they could be trying for something. They could be in the rebuild, but these moves seem like they're trying to win games right now. So a few of the two biggest signings they had was Tony Pollard to a 3-year, $24 million. We talked about Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. So this is just pretty much a replacement. And then they also signing Calvin Ridley to a 4-year deal, $92 million. Big contract. And then I think their next one is probably Lloyd Cushenberry, 4-year, $50 million. And Also signing Mason Rudolph to a 1-year deal for 2.87. Just gonna throw that in there. Underrated signing in my opinion. But how do you guys feel about the Titans class so far?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. Obviously, Derrick Henry, post Derrick Henry, makes sense. They got to pick up a running back, Tony Pollard. Um, Not one of those big household names, but uh, definitely one of those guys that kind of had a quick burst onto the scene, at least in the running back position. But then last year, just kind of struggled to find the end zone. Didn't really, score until late into the year, and was just, not by any means having bad games. I think the yardage was there and was decent for a few times there. But yeah, just couldn't find the end zone until late in the year. And maybe he'll have more luck being in a new scene. Definitely going to be interesting with that offense being so focused around Derrick Henry. What that's going to look like without him. You mentioned Calvin Ridley. Now they got some receivers. Hopkins, Ridley. What that's going to look like. I think the only question really is now who's going to be the quarterback. We saw flashes of Will Levis, and then injury kind of took him out for the remainder of the year. Is he going to be the guy? I still feel like it's kind of questionable right now. I mean, I felt like maybe he earned the starting position going forward, just with the flashes of play that he had. But I don't know. I still think it's kind of questionable. But yeah, they're in a weird position right now. I mean, their identity has really been Derrick Henry for the last, ever since having him, really. So I don't know. I think it's whether or not they can figure out what that's going to look like without him. Is it still going to be Pollard? I mean, obviously we know Pollard isn't Derrick Henry, but is it still going to be a run dominant offense, or are they going to switch things up? So, yeah, I right now it's questionable. I don't know what's going on with them, and I don't want to call it a full rebuild, but definitely not expecting any playoff appearances maybe for another few years.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, actually. I felt like, yeah, it was a solid free agent from them because it's just finding out what direction they're going in. I think they're hoping that Will Levis will take that next step and really become what they want him to. But bring in Mason Rudolph both as a backup, but also just to compete. Maybe push Levis to be the player that they wanted to. Tony Pollard going to be split in backfield with Tajay Spears, right? Spears? Is it Spears or Sharp?
Yep.
Sharp was their old receiver. No, wrong one. Okay.
Bears, yeah.
But yeah, he split in time there, and then Calvin Ridley, who I like. Yeah, I think we're positive that Titans fans are pretty upset that they bring in Calvin Ridley on this big deal, knowing that they didn't want to pay AJ Brown for 4 years, 100 mil. But that was 2 years ago. They're moving on. But I misspoke earlier. It's the same. I think this is going to be a second year because they fired that GM that made that trade like the year after. The year after they did the AJ Brown trade. So regardless, though, yeah, they're going a different direction already, and yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see. But as far as their offense, it seems like we'll be seeing more of what Sean McVay does. Since what's his name, Brian Callahan, right? He's from the Sean McVay tree. From shoot, I'm drawing blanks on the Bengals head coach, but
Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor. That's what it was. Taylor. I remember Zach, but yeah, he's from the McVay tree, so might be seeing more or less. I think whatever the Bengals and the Rams have been doing. So
Yeah, pretty much again. See both of you guys. It's a weird position they're in. I feel like the Titans have just become this middle of the pack team. They just forever will be there, and this is kind of what these signings pretty much tell me. Yeah, like we said, I think Calvin Ridley's a great receiver. I definitely did not think 4-year, 92 mil was worth what he did last season. Amazing with the Falcons. I thought he had a pretty big down year with the Jaguars coming off the suspension year, but also with the market, I kind of get it. Calvin Ridley, I think, was pretty much the only big name that made it to free agency. We know T. Higgins got franchise tagged, so he didn't get there, but I think Calvin Ridley was the biggest, and it makes sense. They pretty much had to overpay. They were bidders for him, so yeah, Tony Pollard, I don't mind the contract. I just question him with Spears. I feel like those two are somewhat similar backs. Not really too much difference between those two, so it's kind of a weird backfield duo you have. I know it kind of looked like they were getting Sharp ready for that starting position. I know he was
Spears.
taking Derrick. Well, what did I say?
Spears.
Sharp.
You said
Spears.
same thing as me. Yeah.
See, you got it in my head, but yeah, yeah, they seemed like they're prepping him for that RB1 because they knew Derrick Henry was out, and to get Pollard, who just I don't know, I don't know how they mesh. Um, I don't think it will come too much of a surprise, but I think one of my favorite signings is the Mason Rudolph. I mean, for Mason and the Titans, you're for Mason, you're not competing with a round one quarterback. I don't know why you guys are laughing. I think he is starting capable. You went to a team that has weapons. I mean, we talked. They just brought in Calvin Ridley. They have D Hop, Tony Pollard. Good offense, offensive-minded coach under him, and just a place where you can actually compete for that starting job. I mean, I like Will Levis, but I don't think his job is secured. You don't have the big investment of a first-round pick on him, so it's not. You're not that dedicated to him. I mean, you still are because you drafted him, but I think this is a great place for him. But yeah, I don't know what the Titans are doing. It just seems like they are content with staying in the middle of the pack. But we'll move on to the defending Super Bowl champions. Had a decent offseason. A lot of more re-signing of just players, big pieces on that defense. We know Chris Jones re-signed for 5 years, 158 mil. Ladarius Sneed got the franchise tag. But their big addition, in my opinion, is the Marquise Brown, signing 1 year deal worth up to 11 mil. So, and they re-signed Drew Tranquil. I forgot about that one as well. So, just keeping the pieces there from what I mean, won them the league last year. So makes sense on their part. They needed the receiver help. But how do you guys feel about Chiefs moves?
Like you said, they just brought in just a bunch of re-signed a bunch of their guys. Chris Jones, obviously, the big name there. Bring in their best player, not named Mahomes or Kelsey. Yeah, and then Marquise Brown. It's a good acquisition. 1 year deal. I like him. Same time, frustrates me a little bit. He's just like he's a bit like Tyler Lockett, but he's more of a light version where he's just not as good. But he don't get yacked either. Not that much. But he's not like Tyler Lockett, where Tyler Lockett makes a business decision.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you guys said, just kind of copied and paste, pretty much, keeping the same guys. We know, we know what the Chiefs are, and yeah, they look the same as they are. Obviously, adding a receiver, essentially a former receiver one. That's at one point. Not that he's a true receiver one, but just kind of was in a position where he really was the best receiver on a team. Um, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I mean, we know that they're hurting at the receiver position. I mean, at the end of the day, Mahomes is going to make do with anybody, really. I wish it would have been more of a size receiver, just height, build, just one of those kind of vertical jump ball, big guys that can win those jump balls. Because I feel like they have those speed threats. Rashee Rice, he's definitely, I think, going to be that speed option. So I mean, that's the thing with me is just you're just adding another Rashee Rice onto your team, or you could just say Rashee Rice is the same as Brown. I feel like just small, not like super, you know, not going to win those one-on-one jump balls. But, I mean, I don't know. At one point, Brown was, you know, he was a good receiver. I felt like a household name at one point, but just kind of hasn't really been there in a while. Maybe it's being on the Cardinals and, Kyler Murray. I don't know. Can you blame Kyler Murray or can you blame the Cardinals kind of stunting his abilities? Maybe Mahomes will bring the best out of him. I mean, we know he will, but I don't know. I'm kind of, it's whatever. It's a receiver signing. We know they needed it. And yeah, like you said, Braden, earlier, there's just not a lot of big names going out there right now. I know we kind of thought that maybe it was going to be Calvin Ridley, but it's slim pickings basically at this point. So I feel like it's kind of one of those, hey, this is as good as we're going to get basically. So we got the money. Let's just throw them a little 1-year deal. See how it goes.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not happy at good or bad. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle. Just screams Kansas City signing to me. I feel like since they've known what Mahomes is, they're just going to spend cheap on a first-round receiver that's kind of not been played up to expectation. I mean, Sammy Watkins, the Kadarius Toney, Juju, not a first-round pick, but just guys that haven't really worked out, but they just believe Mahomes is going to bring the best out of them.
I mean,
yeah,
find a way to make it work, I guess.
That's why I can't hate it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't hate it. But yeah, bringing back the pieces was huge. I don't know how they can afford all this. I question that pretty much every time almost. Just how much they signed. Chris Jones too was a crazy amount. But yeah, great offseason by them. I mean, they're pretty much what every team wants to be, so keeping their pieces intact just makes sense. But yeah. Next, we'll just go to a big signing since the Raiders didn't do too much, or at least big names. We'll talk about Gardner Minshew probably next week or sometime, or just about the QB's carousel. But their big move was Christian Wilkins from D lineman from the Miami Dolphins, signing a 4-year deal for $110 million to the Raiders. Great signing. Great to see him going to be paired up with Max Crosby. That defense can get a little lethal now, especially that pass rush. So be interesting to see. Raiders might be fun to watch for once, but how do you guys feel?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a signing that made sense for them on the defensive side. We kind of were talking about Crosby all year, essentially being the entire defensive line. I mean, the entire defense really for the Raiders. Kind of a one-man show. Not really any other big names there with him, and kind of did it all by himself. So yeah, this should be a good combination. I think inside, outside. Wilkins, being that big threat, interior stopper, and then Crosby on the outside, wreaking havoc. I think it'll be a nice little 1-2 combo. Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are the Raiders. We know that they weren't great offensively. They weren't great defensively, just kind of mediocre, middle of the pack, maybe some flashes here and there. So I think it'll still be the same. But, yeah, definitely going to be interesting to watch, having, someone to help Crosby. Maybe it'll open up the door for both of them to be able to have some big years.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree. Just great acquisition. Giving Crosby some help on the line. Somebody, pretty much just both helping each other out, getting, moving those double teams off of each other. So I definitely did not see it coming. I think me and Bryson were really thinking it was maybe going to be the Bears that was going to scoop them up, but yeah, that was a hell of a signing by the Raiders. I'll say that. But the big question is that they need a quarterback. So I hope that's the next thing that they address. I like Gardner Minshew, but they need a young guy already.
He's a forever backup.
I love him, but he's a backup. Yeah.
He's
How
the
do you
backup that when your starter gets hurt, has flashes for like 2 games and then sizzles out.
gotta love Minshew mania? But yeah, I'm pretty much with you guys. Great signing. Like I said, it'd be fun to watch those two just working together. I feel like Max Crosby has kind of been the biggest name on that defense with not much help. At least off the top of my head, I can't really think of many players on that defense, but yeah, they're definitely in a rebuild-ish kind of mode. Definitely missing a lot of pieces, but that is one big piece to pay up for. But with that, we'll move on to the other defensive lineman that got moved this week. I know one of us is not a huge fan of it because it went in their division, but the Giants trade for edge Brian Burns from the Panthers, and they gave up a. I'm sorry, the wording is weird.
Second and fifth, right?
Yeah, they gave up a second and a fifth and a conditional 2025 fifth for Brian Burns and a 2024 fourth round pick. Fifth round pick. Sorry. Fifth round pick. I'll throw this over to you, Jake, since I know you were not happy about this one.
Yeah, I mean, shoot. I was frustrated. I was like, are you serious? This is all you guys have to give up for him? I mean, the Rams were giving up 2 ones and a second, and then you guys settle for a second and a fifth? I was like, this is ridiculous. I texted you because I was, I did not check my phone that much that day, so I didn't see a lot of the signings after a certain point in the day. I was driving and listening to a podcast, and they brought up like, oh, big news. Brian Burns got traded to the Giants. And they're pausing. I was like, what the hell? And then I asked Shannon, can you look on the NFL app, or can you look? Is that true? So she looked it up. She read it to me, and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. No, I'm not happy with it, but it's a good move by the Giants. It's a steal on their end. Pairing him up with Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, they just got to work on the rest of the roster. But that D-line is good. They might be eating.
Yeah, no, that essentially Brian Burns becomes the biggest name on the entire Giants roster at this point. Like you said, good move for them. That defense looking a little bit better here and there. But biggest questions, offensive side. We know they just got rid of Barkley, and the QB position is kind of in shambles. So, and they're another one of those teams that just receivers just haven't really been relevant there in a long, long time, I think. Really not since, Odell, I think, have there really been a decent receiver core. Maybe one or two guys are kind of were okay and, average, but not in a long time have they had good guys that big names at receivers. So, yeah, I mean, good pickup, but still a lot of questions surrounding that offensive side. Which, I mean, yeah, you got to bolster up the defense, but if you're losing, your power, not your power, but like your workhorse running back and your quarterback situation is kind of really, 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 really questionable right now. I think they need to start focusing their moves on that offensive side. But yeah, good pickup for their defense. Should be interesting to see, especially in that division.
Yeah, definitely be interesting to see. Yeah, another one I'm kind of with you guys on. Amazing trade for the Giants. I mean, pretty much gave up very little draft capital to get just a young defensive lineman that has kind of been a star in the making. Just that's been playing on Carolina, so he doesn't get kind of the highlight games, the big spotlight games, but it just doesn't play on the best team. But he still was their best player, pretty much on their team, both sides of the ball. But yeah, still question doesn't really change my mind too much on the Giants. There's still a lot of holes, especially like Bryson said on that offense, and kind of curious to see what they're going to do for that offense. I feel like they didn't make too many moves so far to change much. So I don't know if they're just going to be betting on the draft to do that, or if they're just going to hopefully tank one more year and then be able to grab a quarterback or a top name receiver or something. Like we said, the draft class this year wasn't great for receiver, at least for top end receivers. So we'll see. But yeah, great trade, but still a lot of questions about that team.
Panthers suck.
Yeah, the Panthers always do. Hey, I'm not too happy with our trade with them. We'll talk about that later, but they were busy. But we'll jump over to another team in that division. We got the Commanders. Made a few moves this offseason. Signing Marcus Mariota, trading away Sam Howell. I don't have the details on that trade, but wasn't too much. I think it was 5th round or something like that. Late round pick. They did sign Austin Eckler for a 2-year deal. Signs up Zach Ertz, Cleenan Farrell, Dante Fowler Jr. The bigger signings were also Bobby Wagner and Jeremy Chin. So this team got really active in the free agency. I think one of the most signings by a team, it looks like, at least from what I'm looking at. But makes sense. I mean, it looks like they changed their whole pretty much regimen. So you've got to build the team you want to build. All these pieces came from the last GM, last coach. So it makes sense that you're just going to get active in free agency, especially with the team that doesn't have any players tied up too much with money. They are probably one of the more salary cap, have the most salary cap to spend. So, yeah, not the greatest class in my opinion, but it's the Commanders. I can't make sense, in my opinion. I can't ask for more from them. How do you guys feel?
You know, a very sizable class. I'd say about middle of the pack. I mean, some decent names here. A lot of old guys getting up there. We can call this the team of Jerry's, the geriatrics. Just a bunch of old farts, just kind of on the decline. So obviously Sam Howell no longer there. Kind of obvious there's going to be a QB pick with their pick. Potentially Drake May. A lot of reports are coming out. Might be the guy they're targeting. So just kind of a fresh start at QB. If I'm being honest, I don't think Howell was all that bad. Really, I think a lot of the issues were that offensive line. I mean, they did sign 2 linemen, Allegretti and Bangahz. I definitely think the offensive line was what needed the most work. So, I mean, who knows? Drake May could be coming in the same situation Howell was in. Could be the exact same. I mean, I don't think it was Howell was the issue to begin with, but who knows? Maybe just a change of scenery, switch things up. Austin Eckler, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't know. I mean, Eckler, I think this is the end of Eckler. I mean, I think he's no better than, at least right now, no better than, Brian Robinson would have been. So, I don't think Eckler is going to be relevant going forward. He's old, he's slow, and just isn't what he was. I do like some of the defensive pickups. I do think I like the Dante Fowler. I don't hate the Bobby Wagner. He's getting old, but he's still one of those elite IQ linebackers that, the youth, the speed, the strength, the burst may not be there, but the IQ is there. And the just game knowledge is there. So, yeah, like you said, just kind of a fresh start all around, front office, team, roster, everything. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, just kind of trying to set up the pieces for Drake May, but I don't expect much.
Yeah, so Sam Howell trade, just go over real quick. Seahawks got from the Commanders him. They got a fourth and a sixth-round pick. Pretty much the Commanders get back a third and a fifth, so just swap in between mid-rounds. Mid-rounds, yeah, day 2, day 3 picks. But not much for me. I think Bryson pretty much nailed it. Brought in the older guys, Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler. I don't think Eckler's too old, but he just didn't have. He had a bad season. That's pretty much the best way to say it. He had a bad season last season. And yeah, we'll see if he can rebound from that. But other than that, they brought in some pretty solid guys all around. But yeah, so Drake May or I'm going with Jaden and Daniels going to Washington. But either way, whoever they get, they're just trying to give him some weapons to float by. I don't know. We'll see how they do next year with Dan Quinn as their coach.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be interesting. I don't know if we'll say a fun team to watch, but yeah, with you guys, yeah, not the greatest class. I do really like Jeremy Chin. Kind of just like me, my safeties. I think they kind of got a steal. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on the Eckler conversation. I think he's not really a running back. He's more of a wide back, in my opinion. Yeah, he's just never been a great running back. Great pass catcher.
He's
Terrible
so
running back,
slow.
in my opinion. Yeah,
Have you guys seen that clip of like somebody put a clip of him running and it was like, this is not in slow motion or this has not been slowed down, and he's just running just like slow motion, dude.
I only see those videos for Najee, sadly. But yeah, Eckler is, yeah, I'm going to agree with Bryson. It's a little washed, in my opinion. But we'll see what the Commanders do. Definitely have the draft capital. High pick, so still a lot more for their offseason to come. So we'll see how they finish up. But we'll switch over to another team in the NFC. We got the Bears. Another just active free agency for them. I'm pretty sure they're one of the top spenders last year. They're kind of one of them more active teams this year again, just with the cap space and everything they have. But the few big picks, they did sign the running back DeAndre Swift from the Eagles for a 3-year deal, $24 million. They traded the lost LA Chargers. They gave away their 4th pick for Keenan Allen. Who else? They re-signed their cornerback Jalen Johnson, brought in Kevin Byard. Jonathan Owens came for a 2-year contract. Dante Pettis 1 year. I think at least not too many big names, but I mean, DeAndre Swift and Keenan Allen were kind of their franchise or the big pickups. I like it. I mean, they were a team that's kind of been struggling on offense. We kind of see what they're going to do with the QB position. So bringing in weapons for a young quarterback, it never hurts you. And that's pretty much what they did this offseason. I felt like they spent last offseason building up that defense. I don't think it worked as well as they were hoping, but they brought in some great offensive pieces this time. So they should be a fun team to watch next year with probably Caleb Williams. I think it's almost a lock. So I think great offseason.
Yeah, I think this was, like you said, they're just getting everything ready for Caleb Williams at this point. Give him Keenan Allen. We got DJ Moore. Give him DeAndre Swift. If he can stay healthy, he did last year, but we don't know with running back. So, yeah, like I said, they're really just giving him weapons, building a roster around him before he steps foot in that team building. And yeah, Jalen Johnson, good extension. That was definitely needed. We talked about that last week, and yeah, they already had Montez Sweat. Sorry, mixing them up. So pretty solid free agency for them. We'll just wait and see what they do with Justin Fields, but I'm sure we'll get into that later.
All right. Hot take.
It's been brewing.
The Bears are not drafting Caleb Williams. They are giving the first pick to the highest bidder They're keeping Justin Fields, and then they will be drafting a premier offensive lineman and then a premier receiver. And they're just setting up Justin Fields with all his weapons. And they're trusting in the process of Fields. Hot take. I don't know. I highly doubt that, but who knows? This has been a crazy offseason, and it's gonna get crazier. I would love to see it. No, I don't know. I mean, more than likely it's gonna be Caleb Williams. More than likely, whatever. But yeah, no, some good pickups on the offensive side of the ball. I think DeAndre Swift kind of had a resurgence here with the Eagles when they finally decided to use him and he was able to get his touches. So definitely a young guy. Obviously, he had his kind of burst onto the scene with the Lions. Injuries kind of stunting him a little bit. Kind of fell off, and then I think he found his footing again with the Eagles. And Bears definitely could use a premier running back. Keenan Allen, he's getting older, but he's one of those guys more known for his route running. And you can kind of get away with that in your older age, being relevant as a good route runner. Definitely, I think, a good pickup for the receiver, go along with some of their other guys. A bunch of offensive line pickups. I don't hate the Coleman Shelton. I know Shelton, former Ram, he was pretty decent at center. And then, defensive side, we know Jalen Johnson, Kim Beard, some big names. But, interesting. I would love to see it. Justin Fields staying and they sell off the first pick. That'd be crazy. It'd be very interesting. I don't know. I was very surprised when Fields was not one of the names being moved so far. So, definitely very, very questionable where he's going to go. I mean, at this point, somebody, either he's staying or there's going to be a team out there that's going to get him for dirt cheap because either teams have been offering and Bears aren't accepting, and at this point they're like, well, maybe we need to, start being realistic about what we're going to take, or nobody's offering and he's staying. I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going on with him at this point. It'd be very interesting to see if they do not draft Caleb, though.
I will say, in the beginning of all this, I was hoping that was the case. Your hot take. I was kind of cheering for them to skip on Caleb and stick with Justin Fields. But hearing that no team wants him and he's going to be dirt cheap, I'm kind of cheering for that because I know one team that loves to get quarterbacks for dirt cheap. So we'll save that.
We're saving that for later then?
We'll save that for the next video. I mean, yeah. But, great class by the Bears. I mean, just setting up for the future. They have the cap space. So it makes sense. Running a little long on the video, so I think I'm going to skip over the Lions unless you guys have anything you guys want to go over with them.
I'd say underrated free agency. Just continue to shore up the defense. Getting Carlton Davis. So honestly, great free agency so far. Not really in the winners column from everybody's list, but they're doing good.
Yeah, pretty much agreed. Underrated class, not too many big names. Did make a few trades, but we'll talk about more of these other teams. I mean, it's been free agency week, so much has happened. So we're just trying to cover the big things. Definitely, when next few weeks we'll cover more of the other signings, other teams. But we'll also real quickly recap. Tampa Bay also had a pretty big free agency class. I mean, not bringing in people, but just getting their big names re-signed. So, great class by them. They seem like they want to run it back. I mean, they won a not division game, but a playoff game last year. So they have hope for a future. That team no one really saw coming in and making that kind of run last season. So, I think great offseason by them. But we'll jump to probably the biggest move. I mean, the one we're all kind of watching, seeing where he would go this offseason, is Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons. I do not have the contract details. I think it was 4 years for a 180 mil.
Yeah.
180 mil. So Kirk Cousins has been locked up. I know we all thought he was just going to return to Minnesota, but I think this is a great place for him. I mean, offensively, we talked about the weapons they've had and just how underutilized they've been. Just finally having a quarterback, and Kirk Cousins is kind of the best thing you'll ever get in free agency, in my opinion. I mean, most of these franchise quarterbacks never do walk. So, and Kirk Cousins is borderline that. So I think this is a huge addition for the Falcons. I mean, like we said, they have a great team. They were just missing that QB spot. So this would be I'm going to be watching Falcons games next season for sure. How do y'all feel about this move?
Kirko Chains going to Atlanta. Gonna be interesting. Big signing for them. We know that, they were hurting at QB. He's definitely got some weapons to work with. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, maybe he can kind of bring the best out of him. Finally having, that pocket presence and, decent quarterback. Bijan Robinson, young guy, huge athletic play. Definitely going to be interesting to see that offense. And yeah, I mean, I know we were kind of all expecting it to be Minnesota again. But I don't know. It looks like they're looking to find somebody in the draft because everything's kind of pointing towards that right now. But yeah, I think it's a good spot for him. Hopefully we can have that play that he was putting up at the beginning of the year. And he's definitely got some big weapons to work with. Maybe a step down at receiver from obviously Justin Jefferson, but I think he'll make it work. And definitely a lot of young guys around him. And should be an interesting team. I know they kind of lost some pieces on the defensive side, but overall I think they're pretty solid. And yeah, definitely a little bit surprising, but good move for them.
Yeah, this was the one move they definitely needed to make more than you can say more than anybody. They needed a quarterback. Desmond Ridder was not cutting it, so they upgraded big time. They got a quarterback that they know can get the ball, distribute it to everybody. So yeah, home run signing. Obviously, just being able to fully utilize your weapons and just just to put an offense out there. Honestly, like these last few years, it was just horrendous. Everybody just wanting Kyle Pitts to get the ball, Drake London, and then Bijan Robinson being underutilized too. So yeah, I think we're all excited for them next season. Hoping we'll probably discuss it later down the line, but it's going to be between them and the Bucks for that division. So it should be interesting. But yeah, great signing from the Falcons. Vikings missed their chance, bring him back. So it looks like they'll be looking at the draft to bring in somebody.
Yep, I'm pretty much with you. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, major sign, changes this whole team around. Just the way you look at this team. I mean, I don't think really much of any of us had them really high up last year, at least before the season started. I mean, they had a lot of offensive talent, but we just know the quarterback situation, what it was. But yeah, they seem like, I mean, Baker played amazing last year, but they seem like they definitely have the best QB in the division, in a very weak division. So this does put them as favorites for me, at least for the NFC South. But yeah, great signing by them. It's something they desperately needed. And I don't think that they didn't have the draft pick to go and get one of these guys, and I didn't think they wanted to give up big draft capital for it. So it makes perfect sense for the Falcons. But yeah, that should wrap up part one of our video. Just going over different free agency. Like I said, we'll dive in more into these other signings, the lesser names, or how other teams did. Just so much news today. We wanted to get at least to the big names. But yeah, for that, thanks for watching. Check out part 2 of our video. We'll be going over our own teams: Steelers, Rams, Eagles. We At least for the Steelers and the Eagles, we've had big off seasons, but Rams also had some big news today, so we'll go over all of that in the next video. But yeah, catch us there, and until next time, shoot.
Shoot.
Shoot.